I was working over there. I'd just joined a software company, a fairly big software company. And prior to that, I'd been at working for an American investment bank. And I was out on a secondment to their offices in Mountain View. So the first weekend I was over, didn't really have anything to do. So I went around San Francisco, did the tourist things. Next weekend, I went up to Napa Valley, where they were just starting to put the vineyards in. And then the weekend before I was flying up to Madison, Wisconsin, I went up and stayed in Carmel Heights by Big Sur Forest. We don't have sea otters in the UK. And I'd gone out to photograph sea otters in Monterey on the Saturday. And I was staying in a hotel that's just south of Carmel. And the people down Monterey Pier had said it was really good photography to be had up further. If you drive south, there's lots of beaches and creeks and coves, bits and pieces. So I went there in the afternoon, probably about 3:30, 4:45, parked the car up. There is a trail that's quite an open trail. It's more like a path that goes down to a beach and probably about half a mile to a mile from the parking area. And at the first beach you come to is very, very stony. And then you can walk across when the tide's lower. And there's a big beach moving back up north that is very, very sandy. It was great. There's a load of rocks on the far side. So I wandered up there, sat down. I got my camera bag with me, taking photos, and was really just waiting for the sort of sundown. So just about to go back, very happy with what I'd taken. And we have an expression, someone's walked over your grave. You really feel quite, your hair stands on end, you feel cold. And I looked over to the way I would need to go back, and there were, I thought, first of all, it was a huge cat, but it was much more big and bulky than a cat. And then there was more than one of them as they came round the promontory where you've got the cove shape. And I have never seen anything like it in my life. Very, very large, very hairy, moving on all fours. And there were several of these creatures, one behind the other. It obviously wasn't a cat because it was moving in a very strange manner. And the head kept popping up as if it was sniffing. And then it popped up. It stood up on 2 feet. There was no other way to describe it. And it was bipedal. Must have been 7 to 8 foot tall. It was followed in onto this cove by 2 other 5 to 6 foot, maybe just over 6.5 foot, and 3 much smaller ones. The larger one, which was definitely male, waded into the ocean. The 2 others, the 2 larger ones, which were, I would have said, females, sat down on the sand with the smaller ones. The smaller ones were digging in the sand. The large creature, the really large one, was ripping out seaweed and throwing it back towards the females. And they were chewing the roots where it had been pulled out of the water and rubbing it onto their chests and around their necks, and then draping it around over their shoulders. So I'm just sat there, I'm just watching this. I can't say I was actually thinking anything more than stunned. And probably like the idiot I am, I just thought, well, no one's going to believe this. I'll take some photographs of it. So lifted the camera up to take photographs. Part of the lens kit dropped off, hit the rocks, went bouncing down where I was sat. And the large creature turned round. Every one of them snapped round and was staring toward me, at which point the male that was in the water basically was up to its, I'd say, mid-chest in the water, came striding out of the water. I've never seen anything move like that in my life. And basically it looked, the way it moved, almost as if it was gliding across the beach. One of the females, the larger one of the two females, came after it, and probably about 30 yards or so away from me, they had an argument, for want of a better word. They were screaming at each other in gibberish. The male that was in front it didn't take its eyes off me, but it sort of rotated from the waist. The head didn't really turn, it rotated from the waist. And it was like if you see a couple in a shop, it was verbalizing with her. It sounded like a language, and they were chuntering away back and forwards, back and forwards, back and forwards. And it was like a couple having a domestic dispute. Then the body turned right back at me, and it just screamed. It was like no other sound I've ever heard. It was bellowing at me, and effectively it just threw down and slammed its fists into the sand, and then stood up. Basically, the last thing I remember, because I passed out, I'm presuming I passed out, I was feeling incredibly sick, was this thing, mouth wide open, big pink mouth, and it was obviously male, it had an erection, and it was urinating, and that is all I remember.